I know. Oh, you did bring this. Are we still in this? Did you have a good summer? Can I see a picture of that?
Yeah, actually, I just, do you want this clipping? Yeah, I have it. I just can't.
Friends in the back, how's the volume? Thumbs up if you're okay, thank you. Rob, are you ready as well? Thank you. Welcome, fellow board of education members, appreciate being here, leaders, appreciate your time. And welcome to our neighbors and community members to our August 2021 regular board meeting of the Bennington Public Schools Board of Education. We know it's a little standing room only. We appreciate your patience about that. We do, before we do anything else, we like to invite you to share your thoughts and perspectives with the Board of Education on issues that matter to you. That could be whatever issue you wish to bring to the table. So we're glad to do that again this evening. It is 7:01. We are going to provide 45 minutes, up to 45 minutes for the community to share with us, because we do have an agenda that we need to transition to for the board. With that, I'm going to invite you to please be mindful. I do have many yellow pages. If you did not get one yet and you'd like to address the board, please bring up the yellow page. We're on the back table. We do have a couple here in the front. That's just to help us with the order. And maintaining that. We're going to invite you to please share with us for up to 3 minutes. I will very graciously provide you with a 1 minute warning. I don't have a stopwatch, so I ask for your grace about that, so we don't have to kind of resort to tenths of a second like our fellow Olympians recently did, and sometimes to the millisecond in some cases. So please be mindful of that. I think that we'll be able to get through everyone so far as I can tell now if we are mindful of that. The other thing I would ask you to please remember is that this time isn't to share about your perceptions, negative perceptions that you might have, or concerns about an individual who might be employed by this district. So I will invite you to stop if that's kind of what you decide to kind of move into about that. So we ask you to please around issues. We want to hear that, and this is your time to help us know what you're thinking about. We have always been grateful for the cordiality and the collegiality that is displayed in this kind of public forum, and we ask for that again. We all live in neighborhoods together, and we send our kids to school together. I feel like people are really mindful, even when we feel strongly and maybe differently about topics. So we do just remind and ask you to be mindful of that tonight. So with that, I would like to go ahead and invite Ben. I would like to first invite Ben Tapper, and then Scott, thank you, and then Lisa Schoenhoff. And if you do have materials that you haven't shared with us yet, please bring them up with you. We ask that you don't give it to us ahead of time, because I'm afraid we won't go to take along with you. So Ben, please, and then Mr. Searcy, and then Ms. Schoenhoff.
Well, Valerie, I don't see Ben. He's not.
Okay, thank you.
In the hallway or anything, so.
Then Mr. Searcy. Hi, Scott.
45 minutes is wasted.
Test. All right, with our first guest at 7:05, we will be looking at 7:50 before we'll call this time. So welcome.
Hi. Pursuant to policy, do I need to say who I am? And where
Please, I would really appreciate that if you would like to.
My name is Scott Searcy. I live at 17403 Bonnison Street in Bennington. I graduated from Bennington in 1995 and lived in Stroke now. Pursuant to policy 205.01, I am proposing the following health emergency policy. The school district shall cooperate with county and state health departments regarding health emergencies when the following conditions apply. The county and state health departments provide true and honest information related to the health emergency, and this includes evidence that the mitigation efforts work. The county and state health departments provide true and honest information related to the start of the mitigation efforts and the end date to the mitigation efforts that do not exceed 2 consecutive months in the school year. All data and scientific information regarding mitigation efforts from the county and state departments are subject to discovery by any resident of the district. Any discovery related to science or public health issues provided by the county or state health department shall be part of any civil or criminal trial. There shall be no immunity from any provision of this policy from the county or state health department. Policy number 205.01, policy development states the board has jurisdiction to determine the policies which will govern the operations of the school district with a force and effect of law. The written policy statements contained in this manual provide guidelines and goals to the citizens, administration, employees, and students in the school district community. The policy statement shall be the basis for the formulation of regulations by the administration. The board shall determine the effectiveness of the policy statements by evaluating periodic reports with the administration. Policy statements may be proposed by a board member, administrator, employee, student, or member of the school district community. Proposed policy statements or ideas shall be submitted to the superintendent's office for possible placement on the board agenda. It shall be the responsibility of the superintendent to bring these proposals.
1 minute.
1 minute left?
1 more minute.
I'm going as fast as I
You were
can.
doing.
It shall be the responsibility of the superintendent to bring these proposals to the attention of the board. The formal adoption of policies shall be by majority vote of all members of the Board of Education, and the action shall be recorded in the minutes of the Board of Education. Only those written statements so adopted and so recorded shall be regarded as official policy. With humility, I would like to submit the Bennington Public Schools Health Emergency Proposal to the superintendent in writing for possible placement on the board agenda. Thank you.
Thank you. You have about 17 seconds to say.
17 seconds, you guys.
Lisa? And don't worry, especially if you're in the back row, I'm not gonna start your 3 minutes. We're trying to get away from that. We'll start really have to talk fast.
Oh, thanks. First of all, I'm so excited to be here. Thanks for having me. I am a mom of 4 kids in the district. I have 3 at Pine Creek, 1 at the middle school. I've been a teacher for over 20 years. I've taught in Asia, I've taught in Kansas City, Kansas, and now I'm the ESL teacher here. I am so appreciative of everything that's been done to keep our kids in the schools. That is, we are so grateful for that. And as we look at next year and we look at masks, I just want to point out some very simple facts about masks. First off, being the particle size is 0.125 microns. Even the best N95 mask is only rated to protect at 95% down to 0.3 microns. So are we planning on having our kids all professionally fitted for N95 masks? Is something to think about. And then droplets versus aerosols. We know that with that small of an aerosol, they stay in the air for several hours. And if you look at kids in buildings, you will notice they pull them down to cough, they pull them down to sneeze, right? So they have to have mask breaks. So those particles are all in the air and they can come in through the eyes as well as the nose and mouth. When you look at the CDC data, 5 to 18 years of age, they break it into age groups. Out of 603,505 deaths, 282 have been students. Those are ages 5 through 18. They are all known to have comorbidities, and that equals 0.04% children dying from COVID. Okay? Now let's talk the Delta variant. In the UK, there were, over a week of time, there were 34,613 new cases and 41 deaths. That is equal to a 99.9% survival rate. And if we compare that to the, flu in 2017 and 2018, there were 45 million cases of influenza with 61,000 deaths. That leaves us again at a 99% survival rate, okay? So now if we look at the current situation in Douglas County, we have 74,308 cases and 740 deaths, which also leaves us at a 99% survival rate. So we need to be asking ourselves when we make the decision about masks, what numbers will constitute maskless students? Okay, and so if you look on the next page, I have all of the sources, it's all scientific research, and then I have lots of slides that show, that you can look at your own time. It compares countries and how their numbers fared with mask mandates in place.
So here, and that's, and to clarify, did you share those with the board?
I have shared it with everyone, and anyone else who wants a copy, I'm happy to share it with you. I have it on Google Drive, and I'm willing to share it with anyone. I'm easy to get a hold of because I work with this.
Carla is here, Steve. If you are willing to let your friend come now, I'm willing to invite you to come. Thank you, guys. And just as a reminder, we do want folks to share for up to 3 minutes. And I'll time it out for you in 1 minute. 1 minute warning. Thank you.
You can say your name.
Okay, my name is Ben Tapper. I'm a doctor of chiropractic on 6909 Birch Street, Omaha, Nebraska. If it's okay, with your permission, I'd like to just do a demonstration before I begin. I would just like everyone behind me to raise their hand. That's okay? Raise your hand. Just raise your hand. Now, I'd like you to put your hand down if you've had a friend or loved one that's passed away from corona. Now, if you put your hand down, just keep your hands up. And if you put your hand down, I'm sorry. My heart really goes out to you and I mean no disrespect. But I'd like you to put your hand down if you had a friend or a loved one that's had a serious adverse reaction to this vaccine. Now, I'd like you to put your hand down if you had a friend or a loved one that's died of suicide last year, or cancer, or heart disease. Put your hands down. You see, I think most of us understand this why we're here, because mask mandates will soon turn into a vaccine. And Biden just put out an article that they're going to try to FDA approve the Pfizer vaccine next month. And if you know Pfizer track record, like I do, I've been studying vaccines for 15 years. Pfizer has the largest fraudulent track record in U.S. history, fraudulent track record in U.S. history. They were charged in violation of Nuremberg Code when they tested pharmaceuticals against the parents' consent in Nigeria. They were fined $2.3 billion when they were misleading the public on pharmaceuticals that they don't full well were causing harm to the people. They bribed over 4,000 physicians to lie to the public, and they were bribing our politicians to suppress adverse reactions. And we're seeing that same song against this coronavirus. This vaccine is the most vigorous vaccine on the market, and they're going to have to approve this, and soon we're going to be here trying to fight for a vaccine for that, so I can do that. But you have to understand, in other words, Big Pharma, Pfizer are in bed with our government. And you guys are listening to the recommendations from these people who are going to greatly profit off their products. And I'm asking you to have a backbone to fight for our children. Have one. So I ask these people, what are the studies? What are the science? And they say, well, I got 40-something studies that say the masks are effective. Well, I have over 100 that say that they're ineffective. And I can submit those to you. The thing is, science is what we can observe. Peer-reviewed articles, it's not science, it's actually academia. Science is what we do ones of observation. And what do we learn from these children? These children are not dying from corona, they're dying from suicide, car accidents, and cancer. In other words, your child has a greater chance of dying on the way to school than from corona. And right now, these masks is keeping children 6 feet apart, spiritual and psychological work on these children. We need to teach these children how to eat well, move well, think well, and they can do well, not to fear their neighbors. 1 in 6 children right now have neurological developmental disorder, 1 in 9 has ADHD, 1 in 11 has asthma, 1 in 36 has autism. Now, 50% of our children have a chronic disease. You are the Department of Health, or Education, not the Department of Health. You can't be the health police in the world. You need to teach these children how to eat well, move well, think well, not to fear their neighbors, and they can do well. The science is on our side. These children are not dying from corona. So I'm asking you, listen to the science, the real science, the observational science, not the tailored doctored study that pushed out from the CDC.
And that's 3 minutes. Thank you. O'Brien, and then Sarah Phillip. Welcome.
Hello.
First of all, I just want to thank you guys for getting us to mask free. We really do appreciate that. That is what should have been happening all the time and that's what legally. Please say your name. Oh, I'm sorry. Carla Searcy, voice actor for Free Bonds. I have 2 kids in the district and 1 in the district. So, I've been in many of these meetings and I've spoken about facts, numbers, stats regarding masks. I said all that, I'm not going to repeat myself, I'm going to go in a different direction tonight. We look into the future, we as parents want to work with the board members to ensure that what has happened over the last year and a half does not happen again. We want to remain mask-free and unmandated. To do this, I'm proposing a health emergency policy be brought on the agenda and a subcommittee, including parents and board members, be put together in order to do this. We want to work together. We want to work with you guys to make this happen. We don't want to fight about this. We don't want to fight like that. I think you guys do too. So we just want to work with you to make this happen. So tonight, I'm proposing the following health emergency policy. The school district shall cooperate with county and state health departments during health emergencies when the following conditions apply. The county and state health departments provide true and honest information related to the health emergency and this includes evidence of mitigation efforts for it. The county and state health departments provide true and honest information related to the start of mitigation efforts and the end of the mitigation efforts that do not exceed 2 consecutive months of the school year. All data and scientific information regarding mitigation efforts from the county and state departments are subject to discovery to any resident of the district. Any discovery related to science or public health issues provided by the county or state health department shall be part of any civil or criminal trial. There shall be no immunity from any provisions of this policy from the county or state health department. The board has jurisdiction to determine policies which will govern the operations of the school district with the force and effect of law. The written policy statements contained in this manual provide guidelines and goals to citizens, administration, employees, and students in the school district community. The policy statement shall be the basis for the formulation of regulations of the administration. The board shall determine the effectiveness of the policy statement by evaluating periodic reports to the administration. Policy statements may be proposed by a board member, administrator, employee, student, or member of the school district community. Proposed policy statements or ideas shall be submitted to the superintendent's office for possible placement on the board agenda. It shall be a responsibility of the superintendent to bring those proposals to the attention of the board. The formal adoption of the policy shall be majority vote of all members of the board of education, and the actions shall be recorded in the minutes of the board of education. Only those written statements so adopted and so recorded shall be recorded official policy. With humility, I would like to submit any public school health emergency proposals to the superintendent in writing for possible placement on the board agenda. Thank you guys very much. Appreciate it. Thank you, Board Thursday.
Sarah will be Mary Susie. J.R. Bryant, Sarah Phillip, and then Mary Susie.
And if you have arrived, since we collected these, if you do have a yellow sheet, please bring that forward for us. Welcome.
Thank you. My name is J.R. Bryant, 15206 Craig Circle, Bennington. I wanted to talk about the mask mandate that some of the school districts are enforcing and some very strange issues around them that raises a lot of questions. I'm proud of the Bennington Public Schools for making masks optional for this year. We appreciate that. I've been to the last few meetings and it's been overwhelming 90% so you're listening to the people. I want to talk about masks that kids are wearing and about the masks that kids are purchasing to go back to school in other districts. I even heard a few Bennington teachers tell me last spring, masks are fun, the kids like them, they can pick out their own masks that match their personalities. So I went to Kohl's in Costco and picked out some masks that would match my kids' personalities. While I was standing there, probably 10 kids grabbed different masks for their teams. Safety, it says safety. No, turn other side. Not intended for medical use and not a replacement for medical grade. Choking hazards for children. What's the Oscar mask? Teacher told my kid to wear. Let's look at that one. Not intended for medical use or protection. That's what your kids were wearing last year in school. They all for absolutely nothing. So this is about science. Having kids wear a mask that has no purpose other than decoration. It says they're decoration on it. What are they decorating? That's my question, because it's not their health. I'm so sick and tired of people following false science because it makes them feel better. I like science, but it's not my responsibility to make you feel better when you believe lies. There is not one single study that advocates for children to have masks against a virus so horrible it has a 99.95 survival rate for children. Why on earth would you mask a kid with that rate? Let's talk about these numbers. The lies are being sold. I have 2 medical articles here for a liberal-leaning institution I would like to pass out. The first one is from the Wall Street Journal. In children, risk of COVID-19 death or serious illness remains extremely low, study finds.
1 more minute.
Less than 0.25%. Let's go to the BBC. COVID children, extremely low risk confirmed by study. But how low? Just the BBC. 1 in 50,000 children will be hospitalized. 1 in 50,000 people. What did you do to our kids last year? Let's move on to the medical findings. Sorry. In closing, I want to talk about one recent occurrence in the Omaha area. There's a private school in Omaha called St. Wenceslaus. Last week, their principal, Mr. William Cuban, sent out an email to the schools and their families with lies and scare tactics. The email claimed that school was going to mandate masks because there were 77 children in the hospital suffering from COVID. TFA did an investigation and even got the Douglas County Board of Health to verify. Do you know how many they had? 0. 0.
And that is 3 minutes.
So my only question is, if we're all going by science, this principal still has mandated after following science. Thank you, Bennington, for doing the right thing.
Sarah?
Allison? Okay, you'll be there. Thank you. Sarah, welcome.
Thank you so much for having me. First of all, public speaking is my thing, so I'm sure my voice will shake. But I needed to be here for my daughter. And what I'm sharing is deeply personal, but I'm not looking for your empathy, I'm not looking for your pity. At 10 months old, my daughter lost the ability to stand. The doctor said, there's nothing wrong with her. You're a first-time mom warrior. Nothing wrong. I waited 3 months because guess what? Doctors know stuff. They're smarter than me. They know what they're doing. So I listened. She got so bad. She couldn't straighten her leg. She couldn't straighten her arm. And I'm sorry to get tearful.
You're fine. Take a breath.
Everything that she has been through, no child should experience. And this last year, they picked her up from daycare. I'm a working mom, like many mothers here. And she was in tears. And she said, Mommy, I can't breathe. And her mask was so wet because she didn't know how the dogs over her. And that's my baby who's been through so much. And you're gonna have people throw data at you that says that mask work, not mask don't work. There's 100 different opinions either way. But when it comes down to my daughter, I'm the only one that understands her health, and it should be my choice whether she wears a mask. It breaks my heart that she's been through so much medically, and she's just a baby. She's about to start kindergarten, and she shouldn't have to do it in a mask all day long. And I will fight for her every chance I get. And I have lost people to coronavirus. It's a serious illness, but you heard the data. It doesn't affect children this way. 1 in 50,000 was what the last gentleman said. And there's a lot of different feelings about this. It's very, you're just going to hear a lot of data, but I wanted you to hear from the personal experience of myself and the medical fragility of my daughter. and know that I'm choosing not to mask her because I know it doesn't work. If it worked, I would have her wear 10 of them. You know, her health is what comes first to me. And the fact that she just was so upset about not being able to catch her breath. She didn't have to wear it all day. She wore it 1 hour. How is she gonna do if she has to wear a mask all day? I will not allow anyone to dictate my daughter's medical health ever again. I'm in charge of my daughter's medical health, not the government. I'm Sarah Tulloch. I live at 14451 Woodland Street.
And thank you, Sarah. Mary Searcy, Sherry Wood, and then Allison, I'm sorry, Allison.
Sure.
Thank you, sorry. Mary, Sherry, and then Allison. Welcome, Searcy. Thank you. My name is Mary Searcy. I live at 16079 Weber Street in Pine Creek. And I will reintroduce myself again because when I start at 6:30, there's a few more people here since then. So just by way of introduction, my husband and I lived in Bennington and raised our 3 children here, and our 3 kids graduated from Benning High School several years ago. We currently live in Pine Creek, and we have 4 grandchildren, 3 that are in the Bennington School District, and 1 that will soon be in the Bennington School District. We believe in the Bennington School District. It's a great place to raise our children and have them go to school. It's just as great a place to have our grandchildren. We want it to continue to be a great place. I was so excited when I got the most recent Bennington newsletter, and it listed what the mask protocol would be. And it said that our children would be able to come back to school without a mask, if they were healthy. And then you had various steps that were outlined, and I was so encouraged to see that, and I'm glad that's what we're going to do. However, we know that the CDC changes their guidelines and their protocols and their policies on a daily or weekly basis. And without any warning, by next week, they could be mandating masks or vaccinations or vaccine passports or anything like that. So in order to be proactive, I want to add my voice to the others that have spoken tonight and encourage the Bennington School Board to come up with a Bennington Public School health emergency policy. This has been read by a couple people already, so I will just read part of it. But the purpose behind this policy is to be proactive and take authority for our children and not let the government overreach on what our children's health is going to be. So pursuant to policy 205.01, I am proposing, along with these other folks, and adding my voice to the following health emergency policy. The school district shall cooperate with county and state health departments regarding health emergencies when the following conditions apply. The county and state health departments provide true and honest information related to the health emergency, and this includes evidence the mitigation efforts work. When the county and state health departments provide true and honest information related to the start of the mitigation efforts and end date to mitigation efforts that do not exceed 2 consecutive months of the school year. When all data and scientific information regarding mitigation efforts from the county and the state departments are subject to discovery by any resident of the district. The rest is all in writing, and I'll provide that for you, but I just want to add my voice and encourage the Bennington School Board to be proactive in taking this health emergency policy where we will be in charge. Seriously, appreciate that. Thank you for your time.
Welcome, Sherry. If you could please state your name and help us know where you live. My name is Sherry Wood, and I live 7933 North 152nd Street in Bennington. Thank you for the opportunity to speak. I have been a registered nurse with a bachelor's degree for 19 years. We have lived in Bennington with our children, attended Bennington schools for the last 7 years. We have 1 in middle school and 2 at Pine Creek Elementary. The Bennington School mission statement is to provide educational opportunities in a safe, caring environment that will prepare all students to meet the challenges of the future. As part of a safe, caring environment, we protect kids from bullying to keep them safe. We make sure their school meals are healthy. We have the safety patrol to help keep them safe as they cross the busy streets to school. Part of providing a safe environment for our children also includes wearing a mask since they cannot be vaccinated. I realize it may be uncomfortable for some children, but this is about safety and not being comfortable. Bike helmets aren't comfortable, but we wear them. Sunscreen is greasy and gross, we wear it. To protect, to put life vests on our kids, to protect them on a boat or near the water, to protect them. I'm asking for the return to school plan to include mandatory masks for our kids in the elementary schools, along with continuing social distancing, hand hygiene, and extra sanitation. Currently, the vaccine is only approved for those aged 12 and over. Therefore, we must take other safety precautions to protect our kids from the spread of COVID-19 and now the more contagious Delta variant. In Nebraska, in the last 2 weeks alone, all cases have skyrocketed 140%. Pediatric cases are on the rise too. Kids aged 5 to 9 are seeing the largest spike in COVID-19 cases in Douglas County. Last week, pediatric cases jumped from 16 to 75 just in Douglas County. The hospitalization rate will follow and is predicted to jump as well. The hospitals are being overworked. Why? Because our younger kids can't be vaccinated. The only way we can protect them is to enforce them to mask those around them, social distance, sanitize, and hand wash. All measures we were doing last year with success. While children are at a low risk of serious complications, they aren't at no risk. Some will get it, some very sick, be hospitalized, and even die. Which child will it be? Will it be yours? And why are we taking that risk that we can decrease the chances by simply wearing a mask and distancing? If we can protect even one child, I believe it's worth it. Do you? It's our job as adults to protect our children. When I send my child to school, I expect they are being protected while I'm at work. Last year, as a school, we were successful requiring masks, social distance, extra sanitation on Wednesday afternoons and throughout the week, and hand washing. Our children were able to stay in school and continue in-person learning with success because of these measures. Now that there is a Delta variant that's even more contagious, why would we take the masks away and forego all we worked so hard for, which is to keep the kids safe and in-person learning? Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Sherry. And Allison Green. And then after Allison will be Matthew Green. Thank you. If there's any other guests who would like to address the board, please do pass up your resolution. Welcome, Allison.
All right, so my name is Allison Bring. I have two little ones that are going to Angel Point Elementary this fall, which is my motivation for speaking today. I'm totally fine with optional masking, although I do disagree with any form of a mask mandate for the upcoming school year. Our daughter attended a summer camp this summer, and when she heard that they were possibly going to require masks, she started to cry and asked me, "Mommy, am I going to have to wear a mask forever?" As a child who struggled with anxiety and sensory issues, wearing a mask this past school year was a huge distraction and interfered with her education. What started as flattening the curve to conserve hospital resources has completely gotten out of hand. We need to ask ourselves, why are we doing this? We're supposedly attempting to protect parents and teachers, all of whom have had the opportunity to be vaccinated. And furthermore, the approach has been hypocritical. Omaha just hosted the College World Series with more than 20,000 people in the stadium where masks weren't required. Concerts are starting up again. Pretty soon the football stadium in Lincoln will be filled for Husker games. Adults get to lead normal lives while our kids are looking at having to wear masks. We're basically saying, we need you to suffer in case it makes us adults safer. It's our job as parents and educators to protect our kids, not the opposite. My fear is, where does it end? Viruses mutate. It's what they do. Are we going to continue masking our children for years into the future to account for this? We need to ask ourselves, why is school the exception where masks have to be worn? Kids have just met at summer camp, indoors together, without masks. When I look around our neighborhood, Stratford Park, kids are playing together everywhere, unmasked, outdoors and indoors. My kids will be on swim team this fall, unmasked. Families will be having their children participate in extracurricular activities unmasked, and will be back vacationing and traveling. Kids will be in church together. Historically, we've always been told, Let kids be exposed to things to build up their immune system. And for the first time ever, we're taking the opposite approach. In fact, I would argue that masks, given how ineffective they've been shown to be in studies that will be cited by my husband, Matthew, may do just as much harm as good. There's been this huge push to not touch your face. I'd say kids are more likely to touch their face fidgeting with a mask. Or what if a child has a cold? Do we honestly expect them to keep a snotty mask on their face all day? Or what if a child doesn't wash their hands after using the bathroom? We know they all do it. And fecal material is on their mask. As parents and educators, we know that kids go through crucial development stages at various ages of their life, much of which happens during the elementary years. The function of school is not only to educate kids, but the social and emotional aspects of school as well, and masking interferes with the social and emotional aspects of school. We can't live in a bubble. Everything in life comes down to cost-benefit analysis. I don't think we're looking at the minimal supposed upside of masking and the many drawbacks that outweigh it, such as the harsh effects on special needs kids with speech deficits, anxiety, or ADHD, and the detrimental effects to mental health and the socialization of our kids. If we're honest with ourselves, we can say a mask mandate for our kids is worth it.
Thank you, Allison.
And that is, I believe, the only other sheet that I have, so please help us know if you'd like to address the board after this.
I'm probably gonna fly my speech. I was told I had 5 minutes, so I wrote a 4-minute speech, so I'm just.
We had to amend that, and I appreciate the flexibility. Welcome, Matthew. Go right ahead.
All right, my name's Matthew Brand. I live at 1710 Bonson Street here in Bennington. My day job is on the Social Security Administration Administrative Law Judge. Thank you for the opportunity to speak. I have a lot to say. Limited time, so I'm going to speak really fast. If you want citations or anything later on, feel free to ask. As you know, I did email all of you last night and included a video. Just wanted you to know, I don't know any of those kids. It's literally the first 7 kids whose moms said, yes, go ahead, talk about masks. I didn't tell them what to say. If you haven't watched it, it's 39 seconds long if anything's interesting. I also trust you. Reviewed my accompanying email about why I think masks are unnecessary. I'm not going to get into all those points, other than just say kids don't really spread it that often. They don't really spread it asymptomatically. Send kids home when they're sick. That's what we've always done. It's going to continue to be effective. I also mentioned that letter. There was a study compared schools with and without masks. They found that schools, best case scenario, 1.4 cases less per 500 students. So you take the point, you maybe say 1.5 cases. Now, is that worth it? Some people say, yeah, every case counts. But I want you to consider the negative consequences of requiring kids to cover their faces all day. I keep hearing people say, oh, it's a low-cost option, kids are resilient, they can tolerate masks just fine. But this ignores the concerns of parents, kids, especially those with special needs. Talk to the parent of a kid with autism, speech disorders, facial deformities. Ask them if they think it's a low-cost option. I tell you, I'm a disability judge. I do. I talk to them. I think a lot of people think, oh, common sense exceptions get made for those kids. I can tell you they're not. There are kids literally learning how to speak or relearn how to speak through a mask. Watch a kid with ADHD. Watch them how they touch their mask over and over again. These kids struggle already to live a life where everything's a distraction. Now we're going to put a mask on their face and say, no big deal. The biggest concern is mental health. How many people here unfortunately know a young person who died of suicide this last year? CDC's own data showed that suicide-related ER visits were up 50% this last year for young girls. No small part due to loss of social interaction, loss of connection to peers, worrying about getting in trouble for mask compliance, and being told, you don't listen to this, people can die. You know, so, look, let me skip ahead a little bit, I know we're short on time. If someone believes masks are a crucial mitigation tool, I get it. You're just trying to help kids. But don't ignore the secondary effects too. You can't simply support masks in schools without accepting these consequences. Are you really willing to say, I support masks in schools, even if it means kids don't get proper speech services? I support masks in schools, even if it means kids with autism and ADHD spend a day miserable, distracted, on the verge of a meltdown. I support masks in schools, even if it means more young girls end up suicidal in the ER. Masks are hurting kids, emotionally, socially, developmentally, and for what? 1 or 2 cases a year?
Thank you, Matthew. Appreciate it. And I believe this is the last one on who wishes to address the board. Is there anyone else? If you do, please make sure your form is good here. Welcome, Tina.
Hi,
And your name
I'm
properly.
Robert. Live 166 Coveworth, but all my kids go to Bennington. I have one more that are actually ever in Bennington. One will be going. I'm not a social worker, so bear with me. I'm a stay-at-home mom. I don't have a PhD. I don't have a lot to offer, and besides the science part of it, I do know that depending on what news you listen to, you can hear a whole different standard. I do believe that COVID is a lot like the flu, and I think it's affecting people a lot like it. But I remember growing up with the belief that we got sick, so we built immunities, and we did this stuff. And my children are very sad. They're just horrified to come back to school with a mask. And I 100% support families and parents that are trying their best to protect their kids. And I'm trying to protect mine too. I really want to support their beliefs and their feelings and our feelings, instilling them on standing up for safety. I think that they can't play their sports that they want to. They can't talk to their friends. They can't work with their friends next time. And I understand that's not logic, but it's a mental logic. And hearing them cry about it breaks my heart. And I understand if you do have a health concern, and if your family truly believes that they need the vaccine or that they need the mask, then send your child with the vaccine and the mask or keep them home too. I think the world has gotten to the point where they are ready to be healthy. They want to come back to some sort of normalcy, and I understand that there's always going to be a flu. There's always going to be a virus out there affecting us. There always is. I just really want to stand up for my children and what I feel is best for them. And as their mother, I feel that that should be my choice. I don't feel like anybody should be given away from me at all. And I really don't have much more to say than I really appreciate you guys taking into consideration listening to all of this.
Thank you, Tina. And we do have just a couple more minutes. If there was 1 or 2 more people, we should have room for that. If there was 1 or 2 more. that need to address this morning. Welcome, Steve.
We're at 17130 Military Road in Bennington. So my wife and I have been discussing home masks, and I was shocked that masks were even a thing to be in the school in the first place, given that masks are there to protect somebody. Why does somebody else need to? If I'm wearing a mask, why do I care what everybody else does around me? It doesn't make sense to me. I'm also a coach, so I coach soccer, and I've had one of our kids on the same games. They wore a mask out on the soccer field in the middle of like 90-degree weather. Now, their mom works down at UNMC and tells me she's in, this is her expertise. Is it more dangerous to cut off the oxygen flow to a person running and exercising outside? It makes zero sense to me why we're putting masks on children, right? To protect them from something that they're, if they do get sick, are going to most likely lose spot, right? I grew up being sick. I grew up with allergies. My brother's got pneumonia all the time, bronchitis. Like, we never were running around wearing masks, and we're also here. My mom has diabetes and lost her leg, but she's never worn a mask, and she's still lives. My grandma is, I don't know, she's 90 or something. And she, 9 years ago, went in the hospital with a heart condition. They said she's never gonna leave. She's still with us and doesn't wear a mask. They should be like the poster people for being dead from this virus. But they go everywhere and do not wear masks, and they're still with us. So to me, like, why am I gonna put my 4 children back in masks again And we're not, by the way. So if it does go to mandate, we're just pulling them out of school and we'll go somewhere else. But the people that want to wear masks, wear masks. Like, that's fine. Do you, let us do us. And that's the way it should be. That's why we live in America, and I think that's why I want to do it, right? Thank you for careful consideration. I appreciate the people that spoke as well. Thank you very much for standing up for the children. Thank you.
Thank you, Steve. Yes, please.
you have time?
I do have, time for one more guest. Welcome, hey, Greg.
Hello, my name is Trisha Otto, and I live at 16506 Floral Circle in Stone Creek. I have 4 children, who are 1 in middle school, 2 in the elementary, and then my youngest is in the preschool. And I was not planning on speaking tonight, but after hearing some of the other conversations, I just wanted to speak to my personal experience. My daughter has single-sided deafness, and she, with the mask, cannot understand very well at all her peers, her teachers. It literally takes away her ability to learn. She would get in this car and say, I can't understand my friends. We've tried doing speech, like even in children's with a mask, and she'll say, Mom, I can't understand, Miss Christie. And so I just personally would, I just wanted to share my story. And for our daughter, the mask is very detrimental. She also has trouble doing multiple things at the same time. So because she is, the mask itself is distracting, but also just takes away her ability to read lips and understand her peers and ultimately to learn and maximize her. So, and again, she's just one person, but I just thought I would share our story, and I support the option for parents to be able to choose whether or not their children have masks on.
On behalf of the board, we thank you for joining us for the public forum portion of our meeting. We are going to take a 2.5-minute recess before we call our regular meeting to order.
I can't. No?
Your life.
Test, 1, 2, is that better in the back? Okay, thank you.
Okay, once again, welcome. Thank you for the brief recess and appreciate, the very orderly way we invited our neighbors in public forum. So we're calling this to order, Jody, at 7:52. Usually Kara is our keeper of the clock. That's close enough, Kara. Thank you for that. With that, we do begin with our consent agenda, which includes, of course, previous minutes, including the special meeting that we did post jointly with the city, which we really appreciated. And of course, some of our other standard items on that consent agenda, including some non-listed requests. Oh, and before we begin, please note a waiting fact is hanging on the back wall. Honey, I got to forget about that. And we do abide by that in conducting our meetings. Consent agenda up first. Who had those today?
Heather and I did.
Anything you'd like to make note of?
We did finalize the purchase of the second bus this month, so it came through that, so I know we approved that earlier. I think that was all I had to note. Heather, did you have anything you wanted to mention?
Nothing significant, construction bills, of course.
Thank you, leaders.
I move to approve the consent agenda.
I'll second.
There's a motion by Mark, and there's a second by Sarah to approve the items listed on the consent agenda. Are there any questions or discussion from the board concerning the consent agenda? Hearing none, Jody, please call the roll.
Heather?
Yes.
Valerie?
Yes.
Allison? Yes. Tim?
Yes.
Mark?
Yes.
Kara? Yes.
Thank you, and the motion to pass the consent agenda, of course, was passed. And we move to reports, beginning with our administrator reports. Welcome back, administrators. We know you've already had some busy days. You had a little bit of a retreat from this aspect of your good work and joining us monthly. So I hope that you were able to get some lecture and rest about that. But we are really glad that you're back because we love your anecdotes. We usually begin with our elementary. Who is our good leader sharing that today? Welcome, Mrs. Evangelista.
Hi, all right, we had kindergarten roundup the first 2 days of last week at all elementary, so we put a lot of pictures in there of that for you. Kids had a great time, and the teachers enjoyed it as well. Coming up next week, we have back to school night. We plan to host that in person with staggered family groups, as this will be the first time we're welcoming big groups of parents back into our school. And we also have our fundraiser set for the fall. So we work together with the PTO presidents and the building administrators to coordinate sponsorship so that we are really rallying with our efforts together instead of all trying to ask for funds. Any questions?
Board members, anything from Mrs. Evangelista and the principals of our elementary schools? Hearing none, Mr. Hoppus, we would love to hear from you regarding our report from the middle school.
All right, good evening. So for the middle school, we had our jump start July 27th. We were able to host that in person this year, and we had 2 different sessions this year, trying to control the numbers a little bit. Had about 135 kids at each one, so it was predominantly 6th grade, but we did have some new students in the district that are starting to be very attended. Went really well, we had a great turnout of kids, but also we had over 20 staff that came and helped out, which was totally wonderful to see. Just, it was so good to see kids and just get some activities and help them get more comfortable. We had our registration scheduled pickup last week. We kind of had a sign-up process for that. It was really good. That is one thing from COVID that we kept, was the sign-up. And what we felt on our end was 15 families would sign up every 15 minutes. So it was a little more controlled, which helped us have more conversations with families, we were more accessible for parents to ask questions. We felt that was just a much better process, so we're very happy with that. And then our open house is next week as well. We're trying to stagger it a little bit. We're excited to get more families and put some faces there. So, any other questions you guys have?
Any questions for Mr. Hoppus from the Board of Education? So far, that's the quote of the night. We were so glad to see kids. It's okay if you have, we might just adopt that as a practice joke for quote of the night. We're so glad to see kids. I love that. And I did just want to acknowledge, as I see your enrollment there, that, you know, this is one of those, as it has been for at least a couple of decades, perhaps, in terms of a transition year before the opening of a new building. So just expressing gratitude for the flexibility and ongoing ingenuity that you will have in terms of managing that space as we wait for that. So appreciate that. Good, and with that, Dr. Blumenkamp, are you sharing the other secondary report with us?
Awesome. Just want to focus on AP test results. We were able to have that data come back to us here about 3 or 4 weeks ago. Before I go into it, just want to thank the foundation, Ms. Meredith, and Dr. Hoagie as well. We were able to secure some funds to send 5 teachers to advanced placement conferences over the course of this summer, which if you talk to teachers that have attended prior or have attended this summer, from my discussions anyway, they're very appreciative of that. They're able to build some professional networks with other AP teachers and learn how to be better advanced placement teachers. And so we've tried to put our instructors into rotations so they can go every few years to either a local or a national conference. And with COVID in place, we had a little trouble with that over the last 18 months, but we were able to send 5 teachers this summer, so thank you for that. If you look at the chart below, or the table below, where I have the years 18, 19, 20, and 21, you can look at the number of tests that were taken. That's the number, not the number of students, but it's the number of tests. Some students may take 1 test, they may take 2 or 3, or some of our students are in for AP classes during the year. As you can see, from 2018 to 2021, obviously our tests have gone up, our enrollment's gone up, so our tests should go up. But I'm more interested in looking at the 5 scores and 3s. AP exams are scored on a 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 scale, with a 3, 4, or a 5 potentially earning college credit for those students. And so the percentage column on the right shows the percentage of students that earned college credit taking their exams during that year. So in 2018, 55% of our 165 students earned a 3 or 4 or 5. 2019, 2020, we had 60%. This year we're at 58. So our 4-year average is actually 58%. And during a COVID year with remote learning, our AP students and our AP instructors averaged our 4-year average. So I'm really proud of them. That's a lot about AP questions I can answer.
A quick question on that. I know that they have modified the format of the AP exam in COVID. Was that a year ago? Am I losing track? I'm not against it.
And if you look at the number, there are 162 students in 2020. That's when we were fully remote. That is why we felt it was obviously a significant hit.
Thanks for that. Any questions from the board for Dr. Blumenkamp? Hearing none. Who is sharing our student services report back this week?
Neither one of us.
This is a team effort.
Whitney is out at this point in time, and she is on the road to recovery, so we wish her well. As you can see, 44 newly enrolled special education students in 2021, 2022, 31 newly enrolled English language learners. That is up from where we have been. So also, you see a lot of training that has been going on over the last couple of weeks. Ms. Fagan, along with Ms. Green, have been bringing in people for training for many different groups, high ability learners as well as special education.
Thank you for those highlights. Any discussion or questions from the board concerning the special services report update for this month. Dr. Hogan, we'd love to hear a little bit about curriculum instruction and assessment.
Well, I'm going to highlight assessment for you today. We will be getting test scores, which we were unsure of from the state testing this year. Because it was a pilot as well as with COVID conditions, the state was not sure about what kind of results we would be getting back. But we will be getting results over the next couple of weeks and be able to share out those with students, families, and the board as well. They will not be using those scores though to give us a level of accountability. So they will not determine if we're excellent or great or good schools this year using those as these are transitional scores. It was an important year last spring because we gave both our math test as well as the state test. So our kids do a lot of testing. The State Department is really working hard to break that habit of double testing students in the spring. They are working on a new model where kids can earn their state testing score throughout the year. So when they take their math test, that will also count toward their state test. And so this is a new model of testing. Nebraska's on the cutting edge of it. There's a great deal of research being done nationally on the work that we're doing. This year will be also tough on our kids because we will still be doing dual testing in the winter and spring again. But for the most part, our kids weather it well and have been doing very well. We found very good consistency between those two scores on preliminary numbers right now. So we're anxious to get the official scores and we will be sharing those out with you as that comes in. So probably next month. So that was the highlight that I wanted to share with you. There's lots of information about the great learning that's been going on with our staff all summer. We had over 50 teachers in for workshops on improving themselves as reading teachers and math teachers just this past week. And so lots of excited teachers to get back and wanting to do a great job for our kids, absolutely. So we are doing online registration at the current time, and you'll see at the time of this report, we're about 96% of our families have completed that, and then our secretaries are processing that at this time. So it's kind of nice to have that out of the way a couple of weeks before school, but our parents have been great about jumping online and getting that registration done as well. So anything I can answer any questions for you about?
I would just note, I love your list around the ed tech pieces. I had occasion to do some research on some ed tech tools and I had never heard of them before then. I see some of them and I'm like, oh, I remember Nearpod and Edpuzzle. So that's really nice to see that list. And I know that that's just sort of a never ending opportunity for educators to learn the next cool thing that will help kids learn and grow. So appreciate you all incorporating that work too. Anything else from the board for Dr. Hoagie? Dr. Fox.
Just the top three there. Once again, Bennington Public Schools was awarded the LCAP Award for workers' compensation. It's a safe environment in which to work with. And that does correlate into dollars, where that is an insurance piece and a puzzle, where that calculation is put in. Would like to thank everybody that's reached out to me to congratulate me for the Nebraska Superintendent of the Year Award. Keep in mind that nobody does that alone. I'm very thankful for the administrators, for the staff, particularly two that have been with me, weathered many of the things that go along, Dr. Hoagie and Ms. Lurby. But I think it's an award that shines a light on Bennington, that lets people around the state of Nebraska know that Bennington's a great place to live and educate students. So I want to thank everybody in that regard. Also want to note that once again, We're above 10% in our growth at this point in time. That equates to over 360 new students or more than the previous year. And all the things that go along with that. At the bottom of that, just kind of gives you an idea. If we were to look at that on a 2-year growth, that's more than 73% of the school districts in the state of Nebraska. Just a couple of our neighbors, but that over 600 student growth, that's equal to almost the size of Fort County every 2 years. We'll go into that a little bit more later in the agenda.
Thank you, Dr. Hoff. Questions or comments or discussion from the board? I would like to express congratulations on a special, very special peer recognition of Superintendent Leader, and agree that is reflective of the multiplied leadership in our district. Extreme commitment to the details of managing a growth rate that I think I'm in a safe space to say is unparalleled, even among our neighbors who are growing very quickly. We all recognize that our teachers, our staff, and our administrators have difficult jobs in sort of regular years. Is there any such thing as that anymore? I'm not quite sure that's even a thing. But on top of the extreme circumstances that we've had in the last 2 years, and the regular job that you do and the rest of your educators, staff, and administrators do, it was a lot to manage through and lead while managing growth as well at the same time. So I agree that it is a proud reflection of our district and of our community, and probably most of all, the amazing accomplishment of our students in our schools, where we have places where they can thrive and be well. So I think that is very exciting to think about. Any other thoughts or discussion from the board concerning superintendent's notes? Thank you for the welcome back schedule also attached to our notes, which I really enjoyed and appreciated. Good, did I miss any from our administrators? Okay, then we will move to committee reports. We do have a report out from the policy committee. I'm very grateful to our policy committee, which is also our leadership team. Allison served on that committee along with me, and we made it through, leaders, all of the policies in our last meeting with Mr. Luby, who was our consultant from the Nebraska Association School Board. Just as a reminder to the board, it's been, I want to say 10 years, maybe. It was a really long time ago. It predated my tenure on the board and doing a whole review of the manual of our policies. So yes, we went policy by policy, and we were appreciative that Mr. Luby brought to us some of the statutory legislative pieces that need to be considered in all of those updates. So we did get through those in our meeting last week. We had a few policies, of course, that we kind of camped on in that discussion, and we'll be elevating some of that for all of you, just from our discernment about what we hear is important to our constituents and our families and our neighborhood. In our neighborhoods, we'll bring some of those policies and talk about some of those, we'll suggest those, and we're looking at an August 23rd meeting, leaders, to kind of do that review. That will be a special meeting, a workshop style meeting, where you can kind of ask us, what were you thinking about this one, and which had significant updates. I have on my plate to visit an education philosophy policy that we're gonna have some language to share with you. So that will be a good time where you can kind of review that. Our hope is to have that updated manual to you ahead of that, with the suggestions for you to read through. And then we'll have a workshop about that. Our next regular meeting will actually bring for the formal hearing of those. We do need 2 hearings to approve the policy. So we want to approve the whole manual at the first regular meeting, the next one. So essentially, you're going to get 3 chances to see this. So more on that special meeting workshop that we'll have on the 23rd to walk through that. I think that's it. Any questions or anything you would add, Mark? I do nerd out this little bit about policies.
It was good, very hard work, but, so grateful to these two for getting through that with us. Good, any other, committees? That's the last that I'm missing, that should get a report out. Okay. Construction update. Mr. Brown? Welcome.
Good evening. I'll go through this very briefly. We have actually 5 projects going on right now. One of them is closing up. Middle school number 2 is proceeding very well. We have our footings in, roofing going down, or going on, I guess, to dry in the building. The gym walls are going up. We're doing underground utilities. They started a little bit of paving on the southeast corner to attach to the new Whitney Street. And they're moving forward. We're currently on schedule. Pine Creek Elementary is basically complete. We are doing a little bit of concrete work in the parking lot as an addition to the project to fix some of the poor cracked up concrete that is currently there. Elementary is working forward. The mason is going to town on all the walls. They're going up very well. We're actually a little ahead of schedule on masonry. We just need to get some concrete floors put down. The rain has not helped that. Still working, same process as the middle school, overhead work, MEP, mechanical, electrical, plumbing. High school improvements are proceeding very well. They are finishing up on some of the entrances into the high school to be ready for the start of school. They are working on the plaza extension for the activity stadium. And the concession stand walls and footings are all going in. Things are going very well on that, and they are on schedule as well. What we call the OPW, or 171st and Whitney, they've done some paving off of Whitney, where you don't see a lot of work. It's all about underground utilities, box culverts, and that. But they're working through. They're actually going to start working back towards snow.
I feel like my great uncle trying to give a vacation story. Gives you just a little preview of what construction sites are at.
Thank you, Mike. Board members, did you see Dr. Hopper sharing there in your smart notes? Any questions concerning any of these? Oh, I love this one. Good. Thank you for these. Any questions or wonderings from the board? I do love this very Nebraska shot through the prairie. It's quite artistic. I did notice that. Very good, thank you. I don't believe we have a coordinator report for tonight, is that true?
That's correct.
And grateful once again for summer school. Thankful that we have a report out on that. Who is sharing that with us this evening?
3 of us.
Good. Welcome. I'm so excited.
We did make a quick little snippet visual for you guys, with some numbers, you know. It was a very long report, although I did make one piece shorter this year, that's the conflict.
Acknowledging back of the hearings, is it okay if I do that? Doesn't have to be on record yet.
See, one page shorter, but the font is around 3.
The font of some of the, you know, scores and whatnot. So it was the largest summer school that we have ever run in the elementary. Largest by double the amount of students, double the amount of staff. We actually had close to quadruple the amount of high school volunteers as well. So it was a very large ship that we were managing this summer. But overall, I think it went probably about as smoothly as one could. I know some of the parents expressed a little discontentment with the drop-off and pickup lines, but such will happen when you're building from 4 different buildings and dropping off, 249 students every day and picking them up. But I highlighted some numbers there for you. So 249 students, we had 24 classrooms, which again was a record. In kindergarten, first grade, second grade, and third grade, we had 5 sections of each, which was very.
I'm sorry, each grade?
In each grade level. And so our average of students range between 9 to 13, depending on the classroom.
So we still were able to keep that kind of 10-to-1 ratio average, which is really, really important and really, really key, I do believe. We're also very fortunate, on top of those 24 classrooms, we had 7 different special education teachers, a reading specialist, a math specialist, which really made that intervention time super helpful for those teachers. That was one thing that last year during COVID, we were not able to do as much of, just because we couldn't have as much intermixing between classes and small groups. So I know that it was really beneficial to have those teachers on staff as well to really dial down and pursue those students with higher needs. As you can see, as far as attendance, that did take a little bit of a hit. I think with the great leap in the amount of students we were able to offer summer school to, I think the commitment to attendance maybe wavered a little bit. This was the first year where we were really able to offer an invitation to all of our IRIP students. We had started that process last year, but then when the pandemic hit, things had to kind of be truncated and go from there. So this was the first year that we were able to offer every single student on the list an invitation.
Please remind the board around IRA.
Yes, so absolutely. IRA is an individualized reading improvement plan. Dr. Whitney, I'm sure will pop in and say anything incorrect here. But it was a state law put in 2 years ago where we have to, by law, guarantee a summer school spot for every student who is on one of those plans. That now runs K through 4. Next year, that will run K through 5. So that's why those, kindergarten through 3rd grade were so high in numbers and sections. And I think we'll only continue to see that grow. We were fortunate to be at Acre when we had those extra classrooms because we had preschooling, so that's why we can have so many classrooms. Moving forward, it's gonna be tough to accommodate that growth, but that's a future conversation for a future day. We were also able to still offer the attendance incentive for our students that is sponsored by the Veterans Public Schools Foundation. And as you can see on there, over 1,700 books were given away to our students for attending summer school. And that was all paid for by the foundation, and so I just want to recognize that because that is an incredible and generous donation. And there were so many kids who came to me in the morning, they're like, I was here all day, all week, I get my books. Couple kindergartners, there were tears after the first week because they thought they walked home with 2 books every week, not all at the end, so we got those past that. 99% of our students obtained at least 1 proficient or advanced score on their assessments. 100% of students saw growth on at least one of their assessments that they were given from pre and post. And so I think that really speaks to how well our teachers did and how hard they worked, and those peer professionals and those high school volunteers were really key in seeing that growth. We did have some higher behavioral needs this summer, which I think is something that we'll probably address moving forward with how to best service those students. But overall, from the surveys, you can see that the vast majority of people thought that their child had, saw benefit from going to summer school, thought that they saw growth, same for the teachers and parents. And then there's just some fun pictures we need to see with us. I also got to put some of my newly obtained skills from some of my summer tech work. Yes, this is all the infographics.
How many on your staff this summer? Just roughly.
So it's, so we had 47 teachers and paras, and on top of that, we had 38 high school volunteers, which that was incredible that we had 38. And I think almost all of them are ready and willing to come back next year and had a super wonderful time. And those kids really loved working with those high schoolers as well, playing with them at recess, hanging out with the big kids.
I've always been appreciative of the pre-post assessment that you all do. And
Yes,
encouraging students about their growth.
So last year we had taken away the pre-assessment just because, again, we were on such a truncated timeline, we added that back in. We did add the caveat that teachers could make that pre-assessment a little shorter, so that way we weren't taking as much time assessing. Mixed reviews, none of the teachers love spending that much time assessing, but they also understand that that is the nature of the beast, to show growth, to see where your students are at, because obviously you're mixing students from 4 different buildings and those teachers don't know about that. So I think making that assessment shorter, and I also had a lot of first-time summer school teachers. I was really fortunate that I did not have to beg anyone. Those people all applied and were willing to teach summer schoolers. So the fact that I could get that many teachers on board was really, truly excellent. And I think when you look at the post survey comments, you see a lot of
now that I've done summer school, I know what to do better, or, just learning to manage that assessment load and not trying to save it all for the last 2 days, things like that.
Thank you to you and your staff, Mrs. Stroh, appreciate that. Board members, as you know, we would typically have an update on strategic planning. At this time, we are going to, for the sake of, are we not? We have more.
Oh, you have more summer school.
You know what, it was really just a test to see how excited you were. Share out, and clearly, you are ready to go. Welcome.
Good evening. My name is Lucas Offenbeck. I'm the academic and behavior interventionist at the middle school. So that's our middle school summer school director this year. I was told when I got the position that we had to have a meeting. With the pandemic putting a pause on everything around the world, including the 2020 Olympics that just finished yesterday, what better way, or what easier thing I should say, to apply in a fun environment. And so our students participated in different Olympic activities throughout the week, where they had many competitions and competed as grade level teams. And so one of the things they did is on Monday, Wednesdays, and Fridays, which you'll see some of the activities or Olympic activities that they did. We also, during our homeroom time, did some other activities around Olympic trivia, memorable moments. Students created team flags and also created some fun team names as well. One of our books for reading was Rush for Gold by John Feinstein. And that book was read throughout, connecting to our Olympic theme. And then in the bottom left-hand corner was one of the slides that we had for the beginning of our school assembly, where we talked about our Learn, Grow, Lead cards, which were one of our PBIS, positive behavior intervention support initiatives that we use to encourage positive behavior and recognize those students who exhibited that throughout the week. So students who earned a stamp in, I think, 13 out of 15 boxes were able to get a Gatorade snack every Friday. As you can see, we had a lot of different fun competitions throughout the week where students were able to practice in the homeroom the competition that they were doing and then select their representatives from their grade level. Like I said, it was very fun and entertaining, needless to say.
Embedded videos on a single phone.
We're getting digital.
Okay.
And then as you can see, our competition came down to the last day of 3 by our 7th grade team. Imagine losing. 6th grade was right behind the Mighty Donuts, and then 8th grade, the Senior Downs, finished with 17 points. All students were able to celebrate together after the Olympic Games completed with Kona Ice, which was much appreciated on a very hot day. In terms of our summer school achievement data, in the red is our math scores, and then yellow is reading and blue is writing. A couple of the areas I just wanted to recognize that I thought stood out. Every content area had a greater percentage of students who improved on their assessment scores, and then every student who participated in summer school showed growth in at least one of the 3 content areas, where you can see at the bottom of each of those color areas the percentage of students who showed growth. Overall, in terms of 6th through 8th grade percentage of students who showed growth per subject, math was 96.3%, reading was 95%, and then writing was 72.6%. In terms of our attendance, we had 41 students attend summer school, 15 in 6th grade, 17 students in 7th grade, and then 9 students in 8th grade. Our structure is a little different from the elementary. We started on June 7th and went to June 25th, 5 days a week from 8:30 to 11:30 a.m. daily. Students rotated in 3 different class or subject areas, math, reading, and writing, and then every class had 2 teachers in it, allowing for our co-teaching model. And then on the right-hand side, you can see our daily attendance, where you can see that 88% of 6th graders had 80% or greater attendance, 87 7th graders, and then 73 8th graders had 80% or greater attendance. 14 students had perfect attendance, and then 6 students had chronically absent 4 more days. And then another big factor that we wanted to represent was our student survey data that students completed on the last day of summer school. One of the things that I wanted to commend our team of summer school teachers was we had some very outstanding numbers in terms of students feeling that they learned something new while at summer school, feeling that those activities that were embedded in summer school were enjoyable, and then also around 72% agree that the information reviewed or learned will help them for this upcoming school year. And then we also asked them just to tell us more about what some of their favorite items were. And so at the bottom, you can see some of the more populated or voted on items, such as the Olympic competitions, the staff that were involved, our class size structure, and then the activities that our teachers established in the classroom. So again, wanted to commend our staff for such a hard work and their job throughout that process. Some of the just additional notes throughout this process, we started our review process at the beginning of February, where we took in our students' math scores and ELA reading and math, as well as extra grades and teacher recommendation, which allowed us to prioritize our students through a first, second, and third round of invitations. Our target goal was 15 to 20 students per grade level. As I mentioned, we had 41 students who participated in summer school. Summer schools began on June 7th. As of June 2nd, we had 50 students, and then we had 9 students unenrolled between June 2nd and June 7th for a variety of different reasons. And so that's where our final number ended with summer school students. We also employed 8 teachers this year, 2 for each subject area, along with an interventionist in math and 1 in reading as well. Each content team determined at the beginning of the year that they wanted to do a co-teaching approach. So that's how we structured our classrooms based on the staff input and feedback from that. We had approximately 37 students who participated in summer school who were on an IEP. That is substantially higher than past years. 2 years ago, because we didn't have it the previous year with the pandemic, I think we were around 13%. And then lastly, our parents and guardians who, students who participated in summer school received progress reports or report card with pre and post test scores, comments from their teachers, and then also their attendance performance. Some of the future considerations moving forward with our attendance, looking at that beginning date to see if it would make more sense to maybe format it similar to the elementary setting, or also be, I guess, on the same date range as the elementary to maybe support some of the attendance and parent transportation. Also looking at transportation as well, if that's something the district wants to look forward to, because it is parent transportation currently. And then lastly, that enrollment window, because we did have a substantial kind of drop off of students right before summer school, looking at how we can better look for that in the future, as well as if we are going to co-teach, how that staffing input changes needs moving forward. Any questions I can answer you guys? Thank you.
There were a couple things I just want to say I really appreciated. Obviously, we got student feedback. Thanks for that. Not surprised that 3/4 of them said the Olympic Games was fun, so thanks for that. And if you ever need support from the board around medal presentations, you can invite us to those medal ceremonies. Thank you. And welcome, our other secondary summer school report.
Yeah, how are you guys?
Really good, glad you're here, welcome.
Thanks, I'm way out last year, when y'all showed up with a pamphlet, when guys showed up with a
And the infographics happening.
No more here. Just gonna go through our report real quick. First off, I think it's important to understand that our counseling department, led by Mr. Rishling, they track all these kids at the high school in terms of what they're not being successful with in terms of credits. So the sheet is rather long. We work on these kids and work with these kids throughout the year. And then when we get to about April, we start to organize for summer school, start to recruit our teachers. Thankfully, Mrs. Holt, Mrs. Hawkins, and Ms. Wynn. I'm not sure how their brain works, but they committed to 3 weeks in June. Then they were willing to do 3 additional weeks in July, because we started to recruit kids, and parents would say, well, June's really busy for us, so if you offer something in July, we'd be glad to do that. So We came up with the format of a morning session in June and an afternoon session in June, 8 to 11 and 12 to 3. And then July, we offered one session from 8 to 11. And then Dr. Hoagie and Mrs. Fagan got involved and gave us the green light to add some staff members. We added a couple paraprofessionals to help with kids, and we decided to put all of our teachers that we had for credit recovery in one room. So Mrs. Hawkins and Miss Wynn had up to 25 kids in a room, and then Mrs. Holt and Miss Carter were doing algebra in a separate room. They had 12. The credit recovery stuff runs on what's called Odyssey, which is an online program that mirrors our curriculum for the most part. And then algebra was taught using Google Classroom. Mrs. Holt and Miss Carter had the foresight to kind of see, hey, let's record our lessons. So they went back and rebuilt abbreviated semesters in April and May to be able to target our freshmen and some of our sophomores that needed to go get algebra. When I say it's online, please don't get that confused with remote. So every kid came to the building, every kid works at their own pace. Our supervisors unlock the lessons, the tests, the quizzes as they proceed through, and then issue a grade when they get to the end of the semester. If it's above end of the course, if it's above 70%, the credit is issued. If it's below 70%, then we have the kid go back and make corrections on some things, and they have to review some stuff to get to the 70%. I also need to mention Mr. Uckman and his tech department. They were fantastic. We ran this program with the Chromebooks, so Rob and his department made sure everything was updated, made sure every kid had a Chromebook, made sure every kid that conveniently forgot their Chromebook when they showed up, and we were able to supply them what we wanted and keep them engaged. One other thing that we changed was we went to a minutes tracking system this year. What we had found in the past was kids would show up an hour late. We had to make a decision. Do we send them home? Do they get credit for that day? So instead of having to put that onus on our teachers, we tracked the minutes. And if they got to, it was 600 minutes in a credit recovery class and 400 minutes in algebra, at that point in time, then they forfeited. We considered that to absenteeism. And we had communicated with parents through phone calls, through email, that if we got to that point, they would be released from their time. Obviously, the incentive is for the kid to get the credit and recover their course and stay on track for graduation. Incentive number 2 in this format is they work at their own pace. So when they're finished with the course, they get to be done. So we have some kids that are able to get done in 4 days, depending on the course, and then we have other kids that, it took them most of the summer to get at least one course done. But it does say, we had 66 kids show up. We earned a total of 93 credits. All but 2 of those kids earned at least 1 credit. We had 2 kids earn 4 credits throughout the summer. And we did make a dent, I think, in putting kids back online or on track. We currently still have 9 kids that are seniors that are still behind. We have 6 kids that are juniors. And then our big group is our freshmen. And I think that's a combination of factors. But we also have the most time with them to continue to get their comments. Questions I can answer? Yeah, no, our unofficial theme was, less talk and more action.
Thank you, leaders, for supporting our students and providing them opportunities to continue to grow over the summertime. And moving to ongoing and our unfinished business, we do have some construction change orders for us to consider, I understand.
Correct, we have several this evening. I do want to go through just a couple of the larger ones. First is a Pine Creek addition. This is what Mr. Berg was talking about, help replace some of the existing parking lot. That is $20,000. Not to say that the rest of these are not true money, but we're looking at some others, particularly when we get down to Bennington Road and Whitney Street. All of these were necessary due to changes with the City of Omaha plan. And as they work through that, those caused changes to the contract. So we have 2 large ones, sanitary sewer revision and a head wall detail that goes with the roundabout. Again, we are making recommendations to go along with that. Then we have the Bennington High School support sites. One is the addition to the stadium seating and we have poor soils in that area. Therefore, we have to shore up the footings. And that Helica Piers is something very similar to what was done at the district office a couple of years ago because of the same conditions, poor soils. So it's additionals that go along with the footings that would cost $106,000 or close to $107,000. We will recommend softball dugouts, but not to seed. We have some other options with contracting, and we are exploring those options as we move forward. But it will be done, and this is to give you a bid from Midwest EMC in that regard. Again, we are moving forward with that, but we have some other options with contracting. And then the last one is a plaza reconfiguration and increases size of the athletic stadium plaza. All total, with one exception, there is the box culvert revision, which is a credit. And you have a listing of, I believe, $316,664.45. Again, it's noted that the softball dugouts are not part of that, but our priority is to move forward.
I move to approve all items listed for construction project change orders for a cost of $316,664.45, which include change orders to Pine Creek Elementary 5, Middle School 2, Snowden Roads, and High School site.
Motion by Mark, is there a second?
Second, Heather.
Thank you, Heather. There's a motion by Mark and a second by Heather to approve this list of construction change orders.
President Calderon, one note is that these are in budgets for contingency funds, and so this does not exceed what is being budgeted for the bonds 2020.
Thank you. So within the estimated margin of error in another world, that's everything. Okay, thank you. Questions or discussion from the board? There is a motion. Tim, please.
Just about the helical piers, we did not know the soil was bad, or did it get worse over the years, or we just didn't know until we got into it?
It's difficult, and Curtis may answer this much better than me, but it's difficult to get to know that until you get the soils uncovered and do the testing.
Correct.
But we have had that happen before. So we might nudge that along next time. Is an expectation perhaps, or is it really just not necessary? You could be within a square mile, and might be.
The soils can be different 10 feet away from where it does.
Okay. Within 10 feet, not just a square mile, okay. Fair. Thank you for that. Any other questions from the board on anything on this one? Yes, go right ahead.
One more quick one. On the concrete replacement down at Pine Creek, was that from the new addition stuff we're doing, or some parking lot?
This is parking lot, of existing parking lot. And a lot of that concrete was in need of repair prior to construction, and construction helped that along somewhat. So the Ronco did cover some of those panels, which is not included in the change order. But Ronco did do a percentage of those as part of their contract.
I just, when I read panels, I was thinking about panels for like walls.
My apologies. So basically, yes, a 10 by 10 square in the parking lot.
That's what I need. Thank you.
Thank you, Tim. Any other questions from the board? Hearing none, Jody, please call the roll.
Kara?
Yes.
Heather? Yes. Valerie?
Yes.
Allison?
Yes.
Tim?
Yes.
Mark?
Yes.
And the motion to approve the change orders is listed at $316,664.45 without getting my calculator out. It does pass. Next are, I believe, Mr. Egan's, you have an update for us concerning your maintenance and repair list for the summer. We've had a couple things to think about with the summer, always.
Yep, very, very busy summer. Monitoring construction on areas. Of course, doing our normal landscaping, our parking lot, restriping, some repairs in different parking lots. We did some striping and some tar sealing at Heritage Elementary and Pine Creek Elementary, which will help us make those parking lots last a little bit longer. The paint crew did an excellent job. Bennington Elementary is now got a fresh coat of paint on every wall in the building. It took us 2 summers, but it turned out really, really well. The rest of the district, they went through as well, so they did a fantastic job with paint crew. Repairs from the teacher list, we're about 98% done. There's a couple of stragglers out there we're gonna finish up this week. But I do want to commend the maintenance guys for all the work they did this summer, and they did a fantastic job.
Thank you. It's not really for action, but I will give you a second about that. And thanks for that, team, for that. Thank you, Mr. Evans, for the report. There's no action on these items, but wondered if the board has any questions for Mr. Evans concerning any of these items. Thank you so much, and thank you to you and your team for helping get our schools ready for the start of a new school calendar year. We appreciate that. And next up on our unfinished and/or ongoing business is our return to learn plan. We know our administration, as we have every month, has continued to stay apprised of developments with county and even state officials and other administrators and leaders, and we appreciate that. And I believe we do have a few updates for us this evening concerning the plan for Bennington Public Schools.
Yes, thank you. No change in our goals here. We'll review our highlights, talk about remote learning rationale, why we're moving that direction to not offer that, and our masking rationale on providing optional. So this covers school operations, academics, our at-risk vulnerable populations, and our face covering sections. Our return to learn different tiers that is based on our school district's specific cases and outbreaks, what we are learning regularly from the Douglas County Health Department, and then as we evaluate things happening within our schools. So number of staff impacted, students impacted, and virus transmission. So all of those things get looked at as we work on this. Gosh, not laid out well tonight, sorry about that. We are presenting to you right now the current recommendations from the Douglas County Health Department on what happens if somebody has a COVID case. So it had been that we were doing quarantine. With the current situation with adults and older teens being able to be vaccinated, the quarantine status is not what it was a year ago or even a few months ago. The current recommendation coming out of the Douglas County Health Department is if there's a single case in an elementary classroom, the entire class is notified and we self-monitor. And we'll let parents know that. They watch for symptoms, but they continue to attend school. If we would have 2 cases in that classroom within that 14-day window, then they would recommend that the whole class be in face masks for that period of time, those 14 days, from the last day of exposure. Students, yes.
So the whole class, text I read says unvaccinated. I guess you're assuming that the class is.
This is elementary, so at the current time, we don't anticipate any elementary students would be vaccinated.
Does this apply to secondary as well?
That is a different set of conditions that we'll look at. Thank you. Yeah, it's kind of.
They was laid out.
It
Dr. Hoagie, can I have you sit at the table so we can pick you up on the mic just a little better? No, I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you, Rob. So, in that elementary school, if there were 3 cases in a classroom within that 14 days of the first case, they are anticipating that we're seeing a spread happening with that. We would be in consultation with the Douglas County Health Department for further mitigation steps, whether that would be a quarantine for that class, potentially shutting down a class. We don't know at the current time what that might entail, but 3 cases within that classroom within a 2-week period, they would believe would be an outbreak that we need to be concerned about. In the secondary schools, we are going to contact trace per case. So just as we did in the spring, any student who was within 6 feet of a positive case or that more than 15 minutes during the day, then rather than sending them home to quarantine, they'll be self-monitoring and asked to wear a face mask for that 14-day period. Now, this is the tricky part because those high school kids are seeing lots of different teachers during the day, seeing lots of different classes during the day, intermixing with lots of different groups of kids. But this is the recommendation that we have at the current time that would preclude keeping everybody at school in class. And that's our goal in this. And our goal, our secondary goal is to allow parents the choice to put their students in masks or not. If it is an option to put kids in masks or not, these conditions of when we have an outbreak, we need to mask to protect people when somebody may be sick. The area that we have the most concern about are people who are asymptomatic and spreading the virus around. They don't appear sick, they don't feel sick, but they could be spread. So that is the major concern right now for the health department and others out there. So we are still working with the health department. They are still working to figure out the best course of action during that 14 days, but they will be guiding us and we'll be reporting each positive case to them. So that is the current recommendations, but as we have said before, this is a fluid document and we sincerely appreciate you allowing us to make changes as we need rather than needing your approval to make a move.
Carol, can I just ask a question? Any explanation on how they decided 14 days between the first case?
That seems to be the virus's path course as it goes. They have been monitoring approximately 10 days is what we were watching prior. But typically you'll have the virus active in your body for that 14-day period and could be contagious during that 14-day period. So that's where that came from. So.
I have a point of clarification. So when there is 2 cases in a classroom, it says unvaccinated wear face coverings for 14 days. Is that required or is that optional?
That would be a requirement for that classroom. So.
If you don't mind me asking.
No, that's right.
I apologize.
No, that's okay.
But it seems we're touching on kids that are not the ones carrying the virus, I guess is what I want to say. So the kids that actually have COVID, they are quarantined then, sent home?
They are not.
They are not. Okay.
Says it up. I take that back. Pardon me.
No, I just want to make sure everybody knows. Yes.
If you're sick, you stay home. Yes. So positive case, you stay home.
Positive and asymptomatic, you still.
If you're asymptomatic, that you could have a positive case and it may have been at school for several days. And so could have been spreading it and you didn't know you were sick. Right.
So if they are positive and they are sent home,
right.
What are the kids doing for learning?
Like any other time that you're sick, you would be receiving assignments from your teachers.
Okay.
So
I want to make sure that
yes.
something like that.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
And I do have a question of clarification on the secondary school contact rates. Is this for unvaccinated or for vaccinated?
It is for both groups, for all people, because they're finding more and more both vaccinated and unvaccinated. It's the variant that we are dealing with this Delta variant seems to be more frequently passed. So this pertains to everybody who has been exposed.
And at what point are we going to offer a remote learning option if the entire classroom is shut down?
That is not our intention because with this schedule, there would not be a period of time very long from that first exposure. By the time we would have to shut a class down, we could not get our third case until 10 days. So the class is out for 4 days. So we most likely would not set that up because of the length of time. It took us 3 days to turn around to be able to do remote learning for a student, especially in the elementary setting. So if the class is shut down for 4 days, we would not do remote learning. We would do some other alternative type of learning. So, all right. Our intention is still, our hope is to open school in green. We will use the same language that you will hear from the health department, from Children's Hospital, from many of the experts are saying masks are strongly recommended, but we are not requiring them. We really want to manage that language of those health organizations. Our concern is, as we heard tonight, once the kids walk out of school and go to football practice, go to softball practice, do their other activities, they are not masks at those activities. So asking our kids to wear masks for those 6 hours and then walk outside for the next 18 hours and be unmasked and exposed is a confusing and difficult situation. So I don't believe we're protecting them at the level we would hope when it's not a community-wide situation. So unless businesses and outside groups would adopt mask mandates, we don't believe that the impact of having kids in masks in school would be highly successful. So our plan is to encourage and support vaccine efforts in our community. We are in discussion about hosting shot clinics here on our campuses and making that available and easy for our community when they choose to get their vaccines. So that's something we'll be working on to make it convenient for people should they choose to do that. Other safety protocols. When we respond to community members with concerns, we remind them that our protection plan is to be a layered plan. So masks would be one layer should families decide to use those. Hand washing, we will continue that to be a regular practice with our classes. Hand sanitizer will continue to be used regularly. We will do spot cleaning of shared equipment. Social distancing, we'll maintain our seating charts so we know who our kids have been seating around. We're working very hard to keep that 6 feet of distance as much as possible for kids as often as possible so that we can avoid that exposure time. So the Douglas County Health is working with us to do some symptom checklists. So when we're asking people to self-monitor and what to watch for, it'll be an easy tool, whether it's out on our Bennington app or whether it's at every door of school, so that it's easy for parents and kids to be able to do that self-monitoring and checking.
Quick question, I thought we were down to 3 feet.
That has bounced on us again. So it has been 3 feet. When I reported last month, it's back to 6 feet right now. So this is one of those variables.
Is that impacting the lunchroom and whether we're going to be able to eat lunch in the classroom versus cafeteria?
It is, with our ability to, since we are optional on masks, we are just going to keep track of who's eating together in seating charts. The middle school and high school are working very hard to gain additional seating so that we may be able to social distance our kids as much as possible. So that's really our goal. The elementary kids will keep together with their classes so that we limit their exposure to different groups.
They will be in the cafeterias.
That is our intention at this time. Yes.
Are we allowed to speak at all during this portion? I'm sorry, not, but thank you for asking, and you're welcome to ask Dr. Hogan or any board members questions following the meeting. Thank you.
To give you an update on our academics, our goal is always to provide that high quality education. Our goal is in-person learning. We want to continue our athletics and activities for kids because it's so important for that mental health piece. And we want to restore most of our instructional practices, as many as we can, to make it as typical as possible for kids. With our recommendation to end remote learning, there would be no remote learning and no synchronous learning. Our students with a documented health issue, of course, you cannot attend school for whatever reason, are eligible for homebound services. A form has been sent out to all of the families who were on remote learning to determine needs for those families. Why are we so concerned about having kids in the school building versus remote learning? We have watched our kids and been very attentive to their needs academically. You'll see on the board, this is percentage of kids who had 2 Fs in our middle school and high school. We don't grade our elementary kids the same way as we do our secondary students. It's very concerning when it's high school students who are in this boat because it impacts their graduation potential. Middle school, we don't accumulate credits to move on, but there are some students who have had their learning regress during this time when they were not able to be in school. When we see 30% of our middle schoolers with 2 Fs in the fall, very concerning to continue remote learning. It was not the best situation to support those kids. We did lots of intervention with them, individual meetings with students, pulling them in for extra help on those Wednesdays, but still we ended the year with over 20% of our kids who are in remote learning having 2 Fs. So serious concern to consider that mode of learning. Both the American Academy of Pediatrics and the CDC put in-person learning at a higher priority than masking in their priority of what schools need to do right now. And number 1 is in-person learning. And the reason for that is even though schools are providing services, whether it's nutrition services or special education or other academic services, it's not the same. It's not the same as having a teacher in the classroom with those students. There is a digital divide. We gave every student a device, but not every home has the same high-speed internet. Not every home could manage the impact of teacher videos or those kinds of things. So there is a difference for kids when they go home to learn through the computer. And mental health issues. We saw an increase of it. We offered additional counseling hours with your approval. So we know that it was a stress on families and a stress on students. So, and on our educators to try and do remote learning and maintain a classroom and that high level of program that we're offering for kids. So homebound services are there for those students who have that serious health and they're not safe at school. When that happens and there's medical reasons, we will find a way to best educate those students through an IEP or a 504 plan that will address that individual student's needs. And we will develop a plan to meet those. There are lots of ways that we can offer those services and have in the past for students with similar needs. So at times we have students come in late afternoon so that they're not around large groups of people. We have teachers that have made home visits to provide that. So we've offered online coursework. So a wide variety of ways to meet those individual students' needs for those homebound services. Our next step, as we talked, this plan is very fluid because we get new information all the time. Dr. Hawk meets regularly with the other superintendents, with the health department, and we give regular updates for those groups. So I've shared those, summarized the changes that we've had already, and we anticipate that there will be more coming as the CDC and the health department figure out the best way to keep kids safe as we're going back to school. So we'll continue to monitor the metrics that we've heard from many of our patrons tonight. the Douglas County Health recommendations, as well as if there are any health mandates that we have to follow. We'll continue that layered prevention plan that we've talked about, and we will support any community vaccine plans that would help our community have access to those. So we'll be planning to use our early dismissal time for professional development and to really keep a consistency for our students and document our academic progress to make sure kids are moving forward where they need to be successful. So, what questions do you have for me tonight?
Questions from the board for Dr. Hovey concerning the return of learn plan?
Sorry, I interrupted.
That's all right. Questions. That's okay. As they came to you when we had that part, that's fine. So many of those are fluid because they're still being updated. So thank you.
I do have a couple questions. I was impatient for my fellow board members to go first. I'm curious about whether you've heard anything from county officials, what their threshold is or what data points they're monitoring where they might institute another mask mandate for the county. Have you received any indication from them that that's anything that they're considering or that health officials have sort of on a radar or plan that they're communicating?
I probably have more information.
Sure, absolutely.
There are multiple variables, and I understand that that's not a hard black and white answer, but certainly positivity rate and hospitalization would be high on those metrics going forward. But yes, there is a push to get something that is more concrete, but nothing has come forward at this point.
So they haven't shared any data points or any trend lines that they're sort of monitoring about that we're aware of at this time. I understand there's data points they're monitoring, but there's not a threshold or a trend line they're looking at right now. Okay.
There's not been anything publicized or told to the superintendents that if we hit this, then.
That was my question exactly. Okay, thank you for that. A question, my next question is concerning any estimation from health officials that you're chatting with around vaccines. And I have read reports, but I'm curious if they're communicating any knowledge about vaccine availability for coronavirus for children under 12.
Again, because I've been on those meetings, Douglas County, as well as the state of Nebraska, has a surplus, or I shouldn't say surplus, but has enough vaccination, particularly in the Pfizer and Moderna. And I believe it's the Pfizer that is the closest at this point in time. There's all sorts of conjecture, rumor, things of that nature. They are looking at the end of September, early October. If it, as we were told this morning, if it does follow the same as those that were older, then it will be a fast turnaround. And because there is enough in the area, they could vaccinate the 12 and under quickly. It would be a matter of logistics in setting up many things that go along with 12 and under vaccinations.
So it sounds like
It is
imminent is a strong word, but certainly on the horizon for families that might choose to take advantage of that in 2021 yet.
Keep in mind that I believe Pfizer is a 3-week 2-shot.
Right. Moderna at least.
4 weeks.
Okay. And then thinking about the students who need to learn from home, and that is support that the district has provided, I understand historically, to families. I'm curious if you have any estimation about the increased numbers of students who might require that support for learning at home. And is the administration comfortable with the capacity of the school district to ensure that we provide the support to those families, knowing that there may be an increase there perhaps about that?
At the current time, we only have less than 5 students who have requested it and provided documents.
Thank you so much for that.
follow up on that first question that you asked about the mask mandate. But even last year, the only mandate that was in place was for the city of Omaha. That was the only mandate. There was no CDC. I mean, there was no other mandate.
There's no federal CDC.
Was that county or
There was
city?
no state.
That was just.
I thought it was
There was
just
no
county.
Correct.
Thanks, Gerald. Any other questions or clarification? There is a potential motion before the board concerning the district's return to learn plan, which of course, Dr. Hodie shared highlighted with us concerning that plan, which also recognizes, and I'm sorry, one more question, that the administration, that, you know, continues to be a fluid. I read I don't think I want to say this, read the story about the land variant. I'm practicing my Greek alphabet from day school, but so I believe that this allows the administration to have some flexibility to adjust some of these requirements, not requirements is another better word, plans in the document. Help me with that. Are there any statements about that in terms of how the administration will continue to monitor and work around this?
What we're attempting to say is if mandates are put in place, we will follow the mandates.
Which there are none at this time.
That's
Just to
correct.
reiterate that. Okay,
Directed health measures only.
thank you. Again, any questions from the board? There is a potential motion to support the administration and the implementation of the return to learn plan that she was just summarized for the board.
I move to accept and support the recommendations of the administration regarding the district's return to learn plan as presented.
Thank you, Heather. Is there a second?
I'll second that.
There's a motion by Heather and a second by Mara to accept the recommendations of the administration concerning a return to learn plan, which we have, I think, have in place for a good many months now. And appreciate the continual monitoring about that. Any other discussion or questions from the board concerning this motion? I do have one. I lied, I have the last one. Concerning cases and updates and reporting, will the board continue to receive that information as we have in the past, in the upcoming school year?
Individual school districts.
Yes, for the school and the school district, yes.
We can attempt to do so.
Thank you.
Yes, I do have discussion, please. I have a lot to say, actually. Please excuse the length. I came prepared to have a discussion tonight about the return to learn plan. I knew, based on the dozens of messages that the school board received, that there would be a full house in our conversation before the meeting even started. I want to believe that the words that we heard tonight will have an impact and show that we need to speak up as a community. These are my words that do not reflect the board per se, but my individual perspective. In preparation for my professional duties as a board member, I've been reviewing the homework, talking to the local patrons, and as a vowed healthcare professional who has taken an oath to be virtuous and do no harm, I've been seeking the best for the time and place answers. And as a parent of 2 children under age 12 with a grandchild, another family who chose not to vaccinate, I have been discerning upon the best course of action for our family, our neighbors, and our community. While I'm not an expert, I'm faithful, practical, mindful, and hopeful for the days ahead. I did a little pre-test and post-test with our 5 and 10-year-olds. More information if you'd like that later. When they were asked the question, should children who aren't vaccinated wear masks in school? What I can tell you now is that children are resilient. Children listen to adults. Heavy prayer has surrounded this thoughtful process. Videos of well-educated physicians and healthcare providers have captured my attention. I hope that children that are not vaccinated nor previously exposed with immunity are vaccinated as soon as possible. This scientific information of the Delta variant confirms the reality of communicable and infectious disease within society. This is a public health crisis. The public is good to listen to the science and healthcare experts. I've heard some say, would you take your sick cat to a mechanic, or because you are a drunk driver and happen to make it home safely, does not mean you can drink and drive. The continuum and levels of care relating to this pandemic are foggy, tangled, and so very confusing. Everybody has a different answer, a different perspective, and if I dare share mine with you, you will question me and we will get into a lengthy debate. The experts have spoken, the elected officials too. This is where the discussion becomes hot. People in general can be pushed to a mindset that the pandemic is manipulated between science and politics. When we work best is when we combine the greatest of these experts to determine best practices for all people. We look to the experts, the government officials, the Center for Disease Control, state and local boards of health, and boards of education. The latter seeking direction, guidance, expertise, and answers from the former. Then there's the parents. Many of whom we saw here tonight. There is a mama and a papa bear in most parents who will protect their children at all costs. There are the parents that don't want to be told what to do or how to raise their family. There are the parents that are terrified for their vulnerable, immune-compromised, disabled child. There are the parents that think the pandemic is political. There are the parents that are unvaccinated themselves. There are the parents that have recovered from COVID-19 and have lasting effects, like the grandmothers that cannot smell their newborn baby smells. By now, every family has a physician and a personal experience with this public health crisis. We cannot compare. It is not the flu. We hear our experts say it's more like polio than the flu. My message to the families and parents who have reached out to those local officials, sought advice from their physicians, and worked to protect their children by showing up at the meeting is this. Thank you. Your voice is important. Your experience is worthwhile. You can make a difference. Please direct your attention to the cause of ensuring that your family, neighbors, and colleagues are vaccinated. This will make the difference. I recommend you do not require, when those who are not eligible for that vaccine due to age are in an environment that can be compromised, that masks should be worn. Mandating masks will not change the crowds on weekends, the youth sports gatherings, nor eliminate the problem. I see the greater problem unfolding tonight, and I would like to give you one word to keep it in mind. The word is blink. We applauded the naysayers tonight, the ones that said no masks. Those who were in the minority tonight and other nights did not receive the applause. What does this mean for our community as we blink? Can I use it as an acronym and say that we believe learning inclusion needs kindness? That we as parents and leaders and teachers will respect everyone's differences and that masks are optional for a reason? That you can wear a mask or you cannot wear a mask. That you can wear a mask. That you can. And that you cannot wear a mask. And whatever you decide to do in this public health crisis, you will not be bullied for it. We need to think of the most vulnerable neighbors and the most fragile students. And when we are in the classrooms, we know that bullying can win sometimes. And I dare to say that bullying might have won tonight. No one really goes home a winner. We should not compare. Sometimes, even Mr. Lamberty, less is more. The simplicity matters. It is okay to be different, and I might encourage us all to blink. When we go home, that we say to our child, who blinked today? Remember that we believe that learning inclusion needs kindness. And I think all of us in this room that we're here tonight and all of you watching virtually can remember that we need to find ways to spread kindness to one another regardless of what we wear. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Gertz. Any other discussion or statements from board members?
I do have a couple of comments, and they may challenge Heather for length. So, I do want to thank everyone who shared their perspectives either tonight or through the volume of email that I've received with good attachments and information. and all the like. Given the public interest in this issue, I thought the public deserved to hear from at least a couple of board members what our thinking is as decision makers. And again, I do speak for myself and not for any other board members. But I want to assure the public that I have studied and informed myself as much as a non-medical professional can in my duty as an elected official to make a decision for this community. Please don't doubt that. That's something that I take seriously, and I think these other board members take seriously as well. Tonight I'll be voting in favor of supporting the recommendation that we recommend but not require either vaccination or masks for students and for staff. And I came to this conclusion personally for a couple of reasons. I'm not going to talk science, but I am going to talk civics a bit. There's a Nebraska state statute 71-1630 that vests county health departments and the Nebraska Health and Human Services Department with the responsibility and the authority to manage public health issues. That statute exists for a reason. Public schools comprise only a portion of the public health picture. We don't govern bars, we don't govern restaurants, we don't govern most service businesses. The public health department has the experts and again, the responsibility and the authority to gather this information and make rules and regulations to protect and preserve the public health initiative. That doesn't rest in the purview of schools. And whether you're for or against a mask mandate, I would encourage you to take your comments to that authority and let them know how you feel. The Public Board of Health, from Gage County, the Douglas County Board of Health meets every Wednesday in a public meeting, or every third Wednesday at a public meeting, and I'd encourage you to share your opinions with them. I want to remind us all that the actions that the school district took last year that prescribed individual behavior regarding public health were done in accordance with and in the context of directed health measures issued by either the state or the county. And my opinion is that we should not be acting outside of those. And when they come along, we should be acting in concert with them. And our plan needs to remain flexible to be able to do that, and it is. The second thing that I've been thinking a lot about is, informed citizens should have the ability to act in the interest of their kids and in their community. Our community doesn't need a mandate to be successful in keeping kids in schools. This zip code, 68007, is 78% vaccinated. It's the highest vaccination rate of any zip code in the county, and there was no public entity, no governmental authority that forced people to do that. I also want to remind folks that democratic decision-making is messy, and we can, debate whether vaccines are a good tool to manage it, or masks are a good tool to manage it. The least useful tool in managing this public health crisis, in my estimation, has been social media. All it has served to do is beat each other up, and echoing Heather's comments, I think there's room for all of us to listen to each other and act in our personal interest and act in the community's interest. I'm vaccinated. I'm listening to recommendations. Some of you noticed I wore a mask into the meeting tonight, and I'll wear a mask on the way out because I'll be mixing with people who may prefer that I do. Personally, I'm not sure I need to, but out of respect for those folks and their concerns, I'm going to do that. I think that if you're pro-mask, barraging people with information, as Heather pointed out, I don't know a person who doesn't have a position on this already and is set in it. Calling somebody a party-focused COVID-idiot is not going to change their minds. What I might suggest is that you ask nicely, out of personal consideration for you, that somebody wear a mask if you prefer it. Likewise, if you're anti-mask, I would encourage you to consider that your personal freedom does not exist independent of the community environment that you live in. And it saddens me that the measure of patriotism seems to be how vehemently I insist upon my personal right. I remember a day when the measure of patriotism was how much you gave to your community and how much you contributed to your community's goal. Our goal is to keep kids in school. We were successful at doing it last year. I think if we listen to each other and work together, we can be successful this year too. Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Byers. Do other board members have comments or discussions or additional questions for board members concerning the motion before the board? My only addition to that is like many of you have already noted, I'm a researcher by trade. I do survey research. Looking at data is sort of part of the work that I do. I've done that diligently, but I've also asked and listened a lot to stories because that qualitative piece is really critical to come alongside the much data that we've all been asked to kind of consume and understand and leverage. So I do appreciate the comments of my fellow board members. If there are no other notes from the board, then we will call the roll.
Valerie?
Yes.
Allison?
Yes.
Jim?
Yes.
Mark?
Yes.
Kara?
Yes.
Heather?
Yes. And the motion to approve the district's return to learn plan as presented does pass. And thank you for that. And again, thank you to administration for your ongoing monitoring of the situation and report back to us. With that, we have a few items on our new business that come before the board today. Beginning with our enrollment projections, which the superintendent and undoubtedly many on the team have a great deal of time creating. Thank you again to Mr. Byers, who has helped inform this table that helps us know what our present and future looks like in terms of the young people that we have the gift and the blessing of educating and seeing grow in our district, and that number continues to grow.
I get far too much credit for this night.
It will forever be a legacy for you, Mark Byers. And actually beginning with that, Dr. Conrad, it would be good just to remind the board what the color coding represents.
We are looking at capacity numbers. Capacity numbers for elementary are typically 483 or 23 per classroom. Keep in mind that Pine Creek added 4 other classrooms this year. And as we look at elementary number 5 coming on next year, that would increase the capacity. So green is anything under 90, yellow is 90 to 99, and then red is over capacity. Any building in the 4 elementaries could be over or under. This is combining all 4 together. When we look at the middle school, the capacity is 750. We're approximately 100 over that capacity for this year. And then we open up with grade construction, middle school number 2 next year, which brings down the capacity. This is, by all means, a number. Keep in mind, just like the elementaries, the middle school 1 would be greater or less than middle school number 2 based on boundaries. And then the high school capacity is now 1,150. We're in the yellow. We believe, as we have in the past, that we can be in that overcapacity for 1 to 2 years before absolutely needing something done for facilities. So we are looking out here 25, and we're looking at the 1,300, but we cannot move anything past that 1,300 as we move into the reality that we're going to need a second high school. Okay? There are other numbers that go along with this. This is too many numbers to look at, but you're looking at capacities of 8,000, 9,000, or 10,000. That is what demographers, engineers, planners are looking at in this area. Right now it is somewhere in the 8,500. But as we look at that, you can see elementary 5, middle school number 2 are coming on board, 26, 27, some more building, not been approved by the public. And then as we move forward, you can see the rest of the building. The last one is just to see class size in each of the elementaries. You can see that Anchor Point is at 22, with everybody else being in the 21 to 20. And that is, you just simply don't have any more room. And so putting in another teacher, quite honestly, we're not sure where we would put them. Okay, any questions on enrollment as we have it? This will fluctuate anywhere from 15 to 30 over the next month as people move in and move out. As people who have moved out finally notify the district that they're in another school.
Question or clarification from the board on the district enrollment projections overall and by grade level and by school level.
Is it true that the bond sheet is 3 years at time?
3 to 4.
3 to 4 years.
We're looking at land and development, going through the city planning work, as we've just done with middle school and elementary 5. That took a year, a little bit longer. And so we need that before we get a permit to build.
And pick up this one with the motion. You are sort of, with these projections, looking at an ongoing growth rate, but a slow growth rate, potentially.
Percentage-wise, yes.
And if I'm understanding the secondary total, you are suggesting that if these rates of growth continue, that we will be looking at opening another high school building, or need to do that to accommodate the growth in the current high school building by the 26-27 school year.
Sure.
And so this board would need to obviously continue to monitor the growth rate annually, but consider that as we work backwards around when another bond would need to come before our community for that, obviously, very significant project.
That is 5-year historical data that would suggest that.
Okay. And construction time on a secondary building.
Construction time on secondary building, I would say 26 to 36 months. Okay, 3 years.
3 years.
Curtis says 3 months, 3 years, 36. I say it can be done in 26. This is not me that tune.
I don't think we can do extend that margin of error on that one, so we'll stick with that. So thank you for that, I appreciate it. I think that's all from me. Anything else from the board concerning these data around growth? Okay. Thank you. We'll move now to our initial discussion of the upcoming calendar year budget for the school district.
These are all preliminary numbers. Calendar-wise, the Building and Finance Committee will look at the budget in the next week. The assessed valuation, that is a record, is not done until August 20th. That sets a majority, almost 50% of the property, or 50% of the budget, which would be property taxes. So those things need to occur, and then publish the budget, and you're still looking at the second Monday in September to approve the budget. So again, this is preliminary information. Student enrollment, as we just talked about, we're looking at a $42.5 million budget. That's almost a 15% growth in the general fund budget. There are really two, one for the state and one that is actual. That's why I give you those numbers. Assessed valuation right now is a 12% growth. So almost $1.9 billion in assessed valuation. We did have an increase in state aid. It makes up 41% of the general fund budget. And again, I would go back to advocating state officials. Very good reason why we have monies in for a lobbyist, as state aid is always considered every year in the general session. The other is made up by other actual receipts. We still maintain the lowest cost provider. Again, this is information from the annual financial report of 1920. That's the last one. We're still in the 2021 budget, so we're not going to close that out until the end of August. So we can't do a financial report until October, November. So that is the latest information we have, and we are the lowest cost provider in the state of Nebraska. And you just take the numbers, $3,500 times the number of students that we have, and you're looking at millions of dollars more just to get to the state average. One thing of note, the average enrollment growth plus the average inflation, this is the Midwest CPI, is about 11.8% per year, where the average budget growth is 11.1. And yes, we are not exceeding inflation or growth or under what those two combine. Personnel will make up a majority, 65% of the growth, and personnel costs make up 78% of the total budget. We will have some one-time expenses to open up new buildings. We will have some one-time expenses for capital outlay. Again, as we noted in the elementary report, there's still a very low student to teacher ratio in the elementary. Are there any questions about the preliminary or draft budget for 2021-22?
Just a couple of examples on the estimated $700K in the capital repair expenditures in that second to last data point.
We have air conditioning units called chillers. Those are the big units set outside the high school. They are exceeded life expectancy of 15 years. They're going on 17 years. Before they break down, that would be a $500,000 expense. Those are very expensive pieces of equipment. I think it would be prudent of the board to replace those as the life expectancy is exceeded at this point. That would be an example of a capital.
And then, same bullet point on the estimated 1 million in one-time expenses, is that total combined for both facilities, for both buildings?
It is combined for both.
Understanding it's an estimate.
Yes, and that is comprising of fixture and furnitures.
But not technology.
It does add technology into that. And the reason we do that out of the general fund is typically a laptop, as you see here, has a life expectancy of 5 to 7 years. It wouldn't be, in my estimation, good budgeting to buy that out of a bond that's going to be 25 years in length and still paying interest on something that is no longer in use. So we do take some of those expenses out of the general fund and do not put them in a bond issue. So it does include technology, it includes furniture, it includes, for example, elementary playground.
I know that you said this, but just for the board, can you please remind in the next steps in terms of the 2021-22 budget?
And the next steps will be that the Building and Finance Committee will look at the budget in total, I believe this week, Thursday. And then we have to publicize it, and we have the second Monday in September for approval.
Thank you. Any other questions for the board or for the committee as they consider some of these things as well?
No questions, but always a couple highlights since the budget is one of my favorite things here. And Dr. Hawks covered some of these things, but I think it's important to, I know the board and administration's focus on fiscal responsibility has been a consistent one. So, every year I'm kind of looking at, okay, we've got, 10.5% growth in students. but we're looking at a 14.9% budget increase. Well, let's have a conversation about why that is. And it's, usually related to the onboarding of a couple new buildings. So I think it is useful to look at that 10-year average as a measure of, okay, year to year, you might have some increases, but on the whole, are we on a path that keeps us up with growth, but also classroom, which are excellent. And so in terms of value, I think the citizens of Bennington are getting a great deal having their kids in Bennington Public Schools. The other thing I keep my eye on too is live conversation about property taxes, property tax burden in the legislature talks about spending caps. We've been under a spending cap for a long, long time. And even though our levy is maxed and we've got a bond fund to pay for schools, I think it's useful to note that this school district still doesn't generate half of its own revenue to pay for education in this district. We rely on state aid and aid from and revenue sources outside of the school district to educate our kids. So we don't have a lot of options when it comes to levy on where our dollars come from. We've been living under a cap for a long time, and to Dr. Hawk's math, I haven't done the math, is that really like $12 million? 4,000 kids at $3,500 a kid that we're approximately short, relative to other districts in the state. That's a real interest to me. But I'm also kind of happy to know that if the state would go down the path of an inflation type cap, we've got I guess we're used to dealing with that kind of thing, and that we would be better positioned than most districts to deal with that if it came down the path. So welcome Allison and Tim to the budget process. It's a couple thousand lines long. It promises to be just as fun as policy review. Those are I guess are highlights in my mind. Thanks.
Thank you. Any other discussions from the board? Thank you for the preview. We look forward to hearing any feedback from the committee about this and seeing this on your future agendas. Next up, we do have possible action to take concerning FSA, the flexible spending plan.
We have a resolution and a motion before you to adopt the Flex Made Easy by Maryland. This is a company that will help the district in the cafeteria plan. And many have called and received advice to help in the multitude of things that go along with the benefits of an employee for Bennington Public Schools. So we ask that you approve this resolution.
There's a potential motion before the board.
I move to approve the resolution for the Maryland Company and Bennington Public Schools flexible spending plan as presented.
Motion by Kurt, there's a second.
Second. No, Allison.
Thank you, Allison. Motion by Kurt, second by Allison to approve the flexible spending plan from the Maryland Company as presented. Any questions or discussion from the board? Jody, please call the roll.
Heather?
Yes.
Valerie?
Yes.
Allison?
Yes.
Tim?
Yes.
Mark?
Yes.
Carol?
Yes.
And the motion does pass to approve the flexible spending plan with Maryland. And we do have some staff resignations, it looks like, before the board. There is a potential motion to accept those resignations.
Correct.
I accept the resignations of Amanda Halsky, Anthony Caruso, Shana Menard, Brett Noling, Ashley Keenan, and Tim Petrie, and we thank them for their service. They're free from their assignment.
Thank you, Heather. Is there a second?
Second. There are 6 support apologies. One came late second.
Yeah, I think we got that. There's 6 here. Thank you, Dr. Kurtz. A motion by Heather, second by Mark. Any questions or discussion from the board concerning these resignations? Jody, please call the roll.
Valerie?
Yes.
Allison?
Yes.
Tim?
Yes.
Mark?
Yes.
Kara?
Yes.
Heather?
Yes. And the motion does pass. And there is a potential motion before the board concerning welcoming some new staff to Adjournment.
Move to accept the recommendation of the administration and approve the hiring and support staff personnel for the 2021-22 school year pending background checks as presented. Shirley Cummings, transportation, Jennifer Work, Kara, Chad Royal, food service.
Is there a second?
Second.
Motion by Heather and second by Kara. Any discussion or comment from the board concerning these 3 hires? Jody, please call the roll.
Valerie?
Yes.
Allison?
Yes.
Tim?
Yes.
Mark?
Yes.
Kara?
Yes.
Heather?
Welcome, Julia, Jennifer, and Shyla. To Bennington Public Schools, we're glad you're here. Leaders, that concludes our regular agenda. We do have our next board meeting, as I mentioned earlier in the policy committee report out. We are going to have a workshop style special meeting on August the 23rd. Does 5:30 work okay for the board for that date? It's estimated to be, I'm going to be really honest, at least 2 hours. So we might want to just plan on 3 because there's a lot of policies. But if that's time work for you all, or do we need to adjust that to accommodate anyone's schedule?
Should work for me.
Okay. We'll check that. All right, and then our next regular meeting is second Monday of the month, September 13th, following the budget hearing, which will precede that meeting. Good, with that, we concluded our agenda for today. Is there a motion to adjourn? Thank you, Tim. Is there a second? I do think we gotta have one. I'll second that. Motion by Tim, second by Val. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you.
Thanks.